All right, this time we got the Sonys. That's right, Sonys WH-CH500. And I know this isn't exactly an audiophile headphone. It's not exactly audiophile product per se. This is more mainstream trash, but you'll have to forgive me. I felt like I had to review these just because I've been using them for 8 months now for gym use, and well, if someone needs an opinion on these, here's an opinion. So let's begin with the box here. WH-CH500, got these at Best Buy. 20 hours battery life, according to them. Got good functions there. NFC, they're obviously Bluetooth because, well, why would you wear wired headphones at the gym? It's just terrible, very disadvantageous. And it's recalling, music playback time is 20 hours. All of the marketing jargon that they tell you about. Comes with a micro USB cable besides the headphones themselves, which is pretty nice. They're on-ear, features a mic on them in case you need to make calls or happen to receive a call while at the gym or while on the commute. That's pretty nice of them. Now let's get to the headphones themselves. Build quality here, it's pretty much plastic. It is some cheap plastic. By the way, sorry for hitting you there. Yeah, it is cheap. It is matte. It's not absolutely like disgustingly cheap, but you can definitely tell these aren't a premium product here. Most of it is matte. The cup right here is glossy, and you can totally tell, fingerprints and scratches there because 8 months of use. They got the buttons there. They got next, previous, also has volume up, volume down. The power on, power off button, which is also play and pause. You got the micro USB port right there. And yeah, they're all right. Let's get to the comfort here. So these pads, not the most comfortable thing in the world. They kind of feel like, those toilet seats for old people? Those kind of like, they're padded, they're not made out of like acrylic. Yeah, this is exactly what that feels like. So you got like toilet seats on your head, which is not the absolute worst thing in the world, but definitely down there in terms of comfort with all the pads that I've felt from all the headphones that I've, reviewed and listened to and stuff like that. So it's pretty down there, in terms of comfort. Out of the box, they clamp incredibly hard, but give it some time, stretch them out, and they start to feel quite moderately clampy. They still feel like, clampy, but more on the moderate side. It's not very light, but it's not as hard. It's not as much of a vice as it used to be when you got them. Probably took like 2 or 3 days of kind of, stretching them out, doing the bookcase method and stuff like that. And then they got to this level where it's just moderate clamping, whatever. As far as I could tell, the glasses don't affect sound. And I mean, look, I'm wearing Club Masters. These are relatively thick. They're not super thick or anything, but they're not exactly the thinnest frame either. So I'd like to say this is more of a moderate thing right there. And they don't affect the sound quality at all. And as far as comfort goes, you'll be happy to, or not as happy to know that they stay equally as mediocre in the comfort. Take that as a win or a loss, that's up to you. So I found these great for gym use as far as the comfort goes because of the clamp. The clamp makes sure they stay on your head and they don't come off, except for probably the, toughest of exercises out there. And the only time that these ever got in the way for any type of exercise that wasn't like, my kind of preference. For example, I wouldn't use these for sit-ups just because I don't like the way headphones or earphones feel when you do sit-ups. So I take them off. But that's just my personal preference. Now, on the other hand, let's say pull-ups, where your arms start to get close to your head. They will bump into the headphones, but I mean, that just happens with pretty much any headphone that is not an earphone or meant for workouts. So do keep that in mind. But other than that, it just doesn't get in the way whatsoever, and they're perfect. They're awesome for the gym. Sound. The bass is, well, as you would expect from a mainstream Sony headphone, is little meaty and a little boomy, just a bit. It has fun sub bass, so that's a plus. But the bass guitars and the mid bass really suffer because of it. And I'm telling you this because like I'm listening to metal at the gym or stuff like that, and you would you'd listen to the metal and the bass guitars just really it's like someone just turned it up, and it's, no one is doing him the courtesy of saying like, hey man, turn it down, we want to hear the rest of the instruments too. So it's not like to the level of Beats headphones or what they used to be, but it's definitely up there. And unless you are straight up paying attention for that bass and you're like really trying to pay attention to the music, you won't really notice it. But yeah, so at the gym you won't really notice it because you're busy dying. But if you're just sitting down on a chair just enjoying your music, you will notice it. The mids, oh, those are pretty disappointing. They're hollow and distant. Vocals are just extremely laid back, and they just kind of blend in with the music, honestly. They don't really stand out whatsoever. Modern tracks, however, like I'll give you an example. Let's say Sicko Mode, right, by Travis Scott. On audiophile headphones or headphones that have forward vocals, I have to turn it down a little bit because the way they mixed his vocals with the rest of the song is just absolutely terrible, and it's just disgusting, and I can't hear it. It's too forward. It's too in your face. I need to turn down the volume when it comes to that. With these, however, the hollow mids plus the excess in vocals with the mix just kind of neutralize it more or less. Not perfectly well, but it's more tolerable on these headphones that have a hollow mid section, as opposed to an audiophile headphone that might have neutral to slightly emphasized mids. So take that as a pro, take that as a con, that's up to you. The treble is, of course, elevated, and it can sound quite tinny, which is common with Bluetooth headphones, but is also common with some V-shaped headphones. They go hand in hand. V-shaped plus Bluetooth equals kind of a tinny treble, in my opinion. The treble extension is kind of mediocre, honestly. They're not too great at what they do for the treble extension. However, the presence of the treble can get pretty annoying and can be pretty sibilant if you really want to turn it up. And that's a big downside for me. Why? Because you're at the gym, you want to turn up the volume so that you can really enjoy the tracks and it can really get you pumped and going and, getting to the finish line or whatever it is you're trying to do in your workout. But these don't let you do that all the way unless you're willing to deal with that excess in treble and that sibilance, right? So yeah, they can get quite peaky in the treble, mostly in the S's and the THs from the vocals. That is probably like my biggest concern in the treble region, my biggest complaint in the treble. Yeah, generally speaking, it's just hot treble. It's really not that enjoyable whatsoever, but it's there. At least there's not an absence of something. Although, personally speaking, I think I may prefer a bit of a darker headphone for the gym so that it can let you turn up the volume and the treble won't hurt you as much. Additionally, these are some additional features that I usually don't mention in my other reviews because, well, nothing else I review are a Bluetooth headphone or, mainstream headphone for something other than home setup use. So, additional things. The battery, it's actually really great. I can go like an entire month of going to the gym, probably like 3 to 4 times a week, before I have to charge up my headphones. It's pretty good. But I can imagine that if you are using it on the daily for like, let's say, 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5 hours as a commuter, then I would say maybe charging it weekly would be more of a realistic, way of looking at things. That would be a more realistic expectation. So, Bluetooth is actually quite commendable. Last time I tried a Bluetooth headphone was probably with the Skullcandy Crusher Wireless, which, by the way, are an absolute meme. Those are not considered a musical device whatsoever. Those are just a meme. But anyway, the point being, the Bluetooth on those were terrible. You got constant blips, constant disconnections, and it was terrible. Bluetooth was terrible. Latency was disgusting. These are actually really good when it comes to the Bluetooth. It's very reliable. I probably only got like one blip throughout 8 months of use. And let me tell you, like sometimes I would leave my phone on the edge of a basketball court and go shoot hoops, you know. So an entire basketball court, these were good for it. That's pretty commendable at this price point. What's left? Oh, the latency. If you were to put a YouTube video or any other kind of video and listen to it with these, you actually wouldn't really notice a latency unless you were straight up looking for it. If you're staring at the character's lips or the person's lips and you were watching them speak and you're just trying to point out exactly, trying to point out the latency, you would definitely find it. Without a doubt, you'd find the latency and you would be able to tell that these are wireless, not wired. But it's way better than I remember they used to be. Much better. It's practically non-existent, but it is still there. So keep that in mind. On Android, when you turn these on and your phone screen is on, as soon as it connects, there's a little notification that says Sony WH-CH500, and it tells you how much battery is left. Usually within the tens of percents. So, it would jump down from 70 to 60 to 50, but nowhere in between, Overall, I think this is terrible for critical listening or for when quality is an absolute priority. However, I find these great for gym use and I have no huge complaints with them. I've gotten used to, my gripes and whatever disadvantages these held for use at the gym. Because think of it this way. You spend $60, $70, $80 for something like this, and it'll bother you a bit. Or you can go ahead and go with the premium option, and you can go with AirPods for $160, Powerbeats Pro for like $250, or you can go with something else that is above the $100 mark, or maybe even $200 mark. And then, okay, sure, better quality. Okay, sure, better battery life. But you're spending hundreds of dollars for something that's just really not going to work very well for you. And you're really going to only use it at the gym. So just think it over. I mean, this makes more sense. I think the elevation in the bass is actually better for use for commuting and for the gym. Because when you're moving, you're out and about, the low end kind of, gets lost because of the movement and the background noise and all that. So these are actually pretty good when it comes to that because of the slight elevation in bass. It is at the point where if you're not paying attention, the bass won't bother you. You'll get a good kick out of the sub bass. But it is just enough so that it doesn't go away with the background noise. So I like that a lot. Yeah, that's about it really. What else? I guess one thing, isolation. These don't isolate very well, which is perfectly fine by me because I don't like the feeling of being closed off, isolated, kind of like a submarine or something where you kind of seal it off and the air pressure and stuff like that. Because I kind of want to make sure I'm not breathing too loudly when I am working out, You know that one guy at the gym that you hear and you just hear him breathing like he just, ran a marathon or something. I can control it with this for the most part. I will say, though, I've exercised with Apple EarPods, not AirPods, because I'm not spending on that. I've exercised with EarPods before, and I find those to be better in terms of of course, it's a better workout device because they, with the hooks, they stay in your ears better. With their open back design, they let you hear your surroundings and stay aware of what's happening. But the downside is they have a wire, and then you opt for AirPods and you have to spend $160 on them. So no, thank you. Yeah, I think that's it. It's okay. If you want to pick these up for when you run, you know, those 15 minutes a day that you run, well, go to the description. It'll be there.